Well, I, to a certain extent, believe that Rahul Gandhi is a very, very brilliant performer as far as comedy is concerned. He is the best comedian that this country has ever seen. And he is an absolute entertainment in Parliament and outside of Parliament. Smriti Irani is not somebody you want to fight with, and especially with her family, she won't let them go.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Swarajya Conversations. My name is Sharan Setty, and today I'm really privileged to be joined by Savio Rodrigues, currently the spokesperson for BJP Goa. Savio, sir, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to have you back. I've always, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, enjoyed conversations with you multiple times before, and finally, I'm really glad that we could reconnect after a span of a few weeks.
My pleasure, Sharon. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
So, how are things in Goa? Do give us a glimpse of how things are after the election, and then we'll get to the controversies that are now surrounding Goa suddenly.
Well, it's been 100 days of plus of the government in Goa, the new government under Dr. Pramod Sawant, the chief minister. The 100 days have been very fruitful. There's a lot of confidence in the BJP from a lot of the BJP workers and a lot of the people in Goa as well. There are some aspects of you know opposition that will continue to exist, and that's the nature of politics in this country. There are people who propose and there will be people who oppose. So the government is used to that and the government will take it in its stride. The whole focus of the government has been development and progress of the state of Goa, and that's what the government is marching forward with. You have considerable people within the opposition that have certain views on which Goa should go forward in a particular direction. And then there are people who genuinely don't want to see progress in Goa. So every project gets opposed in some form or the other. And those are the challenges that Goa as a government has faced not only now, it's been facing it for the last several years. But we have to progress. Goa is a state that has a potential to do extremely well from an economic point of view, from a social point of view, and more so from an industrial point of view as well. Goa's got a great opportunity for non-polluting industrial sectors to actually flourish. Great for IT, great for BPOs, great for KPOs, pharma companies, startup cultures that is there in Goa. Very good in tourism. I think we need to explore more of tourism beyond beaches, which is what the government is doing. So the scope is endless. The government has undertaken several infrastructure developments to ensure that the economic progress happens by virtue of the infrastructure development that is there. And we are seeing a lot of influx of tourists coming in from both India as well as some coming internationally. Of course, there was a drop because of the COVID crisis, and I think in the months to come, we will have better tourism happening in Goa. So all in all, I
But
think. Go
does
ahead.
this realization essentially come because of the pandemic? Because Goa's economy was largely dependent on tourism, and today you aim to diversify because you probably realize that completely being dependent on one sector for economic progress perhaps will backfire
No,
sometime.
actually, Goa's major economy for a very long period of time was the mining. And with the mining shutdown, the focus then went into tourism. The corona crisis, of course, allowed for people to understand that there are newer segments of business that we need to look at just in case such crises come in, because corona did impact the hospitality and the tourism business quite high. And But it also opened up doors for tech companies to flourish, and various other aspects. So there were new dimensions to business that were brought in by the crisis always allows you to evolve in newer ways to survive, and newer technologies came about, and that's why now we don't need to be in a studio to do an interview. You and I can do it over the internet as well. But in Goa, from a Goa perspective, what is essential is that we need to diversify. because tourism is one large segment of it. There are various facets to tourism, and within tourism also there are various different areas that we need to look at. We need to go beyond the beach tourism that is there. We need to look at cultural tourism, ecotourism, village tourism in Goa, and hinterland tourism, as you would call it, various aspects to it. Then there is the atmosphere. I've always been saying that Goa has the best vibe to set up incubation culture in Goa from a startup perspective. Not at a startup that's like, already made it and raised several crores, but that incubation level, that creative level, that ability to create a prototype. So there are many companies that people don't talk about. Like Pharma does extremely well in Goa. There are some really big, like Glenmark and all, that do extremely well in Goa. So we only focus on Goa from a tourism or a party circuit because that's what's portrayed. But I think there are industries in Goa, non-polluting industries that need to be encouraged, and that's what's going to be happening over a period.
Right. Even it's very interesting that you mentioned that you want to diversify tourism as well, because I mean I don't have a problem with it, but essentially Goa's image is one that of beaches and parties and churches, but it's much more beyond that. There is a heritage that we could perhaps be very proud of, and even I discovered that of late after 3 or 4 visits to Goa, I discovered how beautiful the temples were, how beautiful the forests were, and started traveling towards the south and not essentially avoided the crowded northern parts of Goa. And then I realized there is so much room for potential, but people actually prefer that part of it.
You see, the problem with Goa has been the imagery, courtesy of you had it initially because of the hippies that came into Goa and sort of captured the north side of Goa. Then subsequently, you had Bollywood movies that portrayed Goa, sorry, as uh, the Hawaii of India. So over a period of time, a lot of the people have been coming to Goa with that image in mind. And that's I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It becomes wrong when you associate just booze and party and sex to Goa. That's when it's wrong because that's not what Goa is all about. Because I can show you places outside of Goa in other cities that do worse than what Goa does in all these vices, as you would call it. But Goa's got a charm. Goa's got a charm that attracts a lot of people, and that charm, many people are realizing and the real evolved tourist is realizing, does not lie in the noise. It really lies in the tranquility of Goa, and that's where they're really moving. So, an evolved tourist that comes from Denmark, Finland, or also from parts of India, what they do is they buy a home out there, or they rent a home for a long period of time, and they prefer to come there on holidays to basically rejuvenate is what Goa is all about. So now they're moving they're putting their houses in villages. They are trying to have a tranquil life in Goa, and that's fine. The noise will come. I'm not saying it's wrong. I think the youngsters and the young adults who come into Goa come with the notion of letting your hair down. I remember once on a flight, you know. You would I saw these couples. They came like really Hawaiian with short pants, and the women with short pants and men was in shorts, and it was really nice. And then when I went back, and for some reason they were there for a week, and I had to come back to Delhi for a week, so I happened to notice the same group on a flight back. And they changed the clothes. There was no longer short pants. The lady was in a salwar kameez and things like that. So I think it's fine. I think people who see Goa as a place where you want to let your hair down and be somebody different, long as you're within the law, it's fine. I mean, there's no problem. It is when you break the law and get heavily into the vices, that's when it's wrong.
Well, speaking of breaking the law, you know, well, what's with the entire controversy surrounding Zoish Irani? First of all, I felt it was extremely vile and unbecoming of the opposition to target somebody so young. If it was, it should be done in a very silent manner because ultimately you are assassinating the character of somebody who's so young, who's trying to be entrepreneurial in the first place.
Well, Let's get into the facts of the case. Sharan. The first fact of the case is that the legal notice that was sent by the Goa Excise Department was sent to the owner of that restaurant. The owner of that restaurant is not Zoish Irani at all. It is basically a gentleman, a Goan resident, and Goan resident who's had it for many years. And unfortunately, he expired in 2021. Along with the with his when he expired, by virtues of the laws that exist in the state, the son came to be responsible for that property. The son himself also had another tragedy where somebody in him that was close to him also passed away. And in that course of the personal tragedies that the son was going through, the license renewal did not happen, which could happen to any of the outlets. And these are some things that happen not only in Goa, where people forget to renew licenses, and therefore they then get penalized, or they are charged an additional fine and things like that. So personally, there was no controversy as such on the issue. So you had the person who's responsible, the owner who's got the notice. There is no Zoish Irani's name mentioned in that notice. So I don't know where the controversy started. Now, of course, there was there were people talking about a video of Kunal Vijaykar where Zoish Irani was saying that this is her restaurant and all that. Now, to the best of my knowledge, she was the intern chef at that restaurant. Uh, in her youthfulness, I would assume, like my kids would do when we go to a favorite hotel that we have in Goa for our birthdays and anniversaries and all that. They consider that hotel to be theirs. Okay, so whenever they invite their friends and all, they say, "Why don't you come over to our hotel?" Because that's the familiarity. Once in a month, we are over there, so the chairman is known to us, and we kind of are family friends, right? So I think sometimes when you're working, you develop a very close bond with that particular entity that you're working with. And in this case, she was an intern chef. So during the course of that interview, she would have said, "This is my restaurant. I run it. I'm an intern chef. I'm doing this kind of things." That to me is a non-issue. Okay. The issue would have been if there is any direct linkages whatsoever with the property to Zoish Irani, but there isn't. There is no direct link of Zoish Irani with the property. And let's assume for a moment if that the and at that point of time the issue would have been, why was there no license taken? They should have pursue gone ahead with the license. But yet again, you have to remember two things: why the license would have got delayed is the time period of the movement of the son claiming the right to the property, and thereby then moving forward to claim the license, because the license is in the father's name. So the takeover period takes a certain amount of time for completion of that process. Okay, and then you can apply for the license. So the shift of that property from father to son takes time. It just does not come onto his name. There is a process that you have to go through where that land is transferred onto his name. The entity that is running it, is transferred onto his name. So that process takes time, and then that's when you have the license that comes in. There is no way in which Zoe Shirani has got any. She's not the owner of it at all. There is no name of hers in any of the government documents that exist. So how can you say that she's got anything to do with it? Now let's take the hypothesis that she has something to do with it. What would have been wrong if she had something to do with it? Have somebody owning a restaurant is wrong? No. The only illegality over there would be the inavailability of the license, right? Which again is not criminal. She would have been fined, or the license would have been revoked. What was the issue around it? I mean, there have been people putting out posts showing her with liquor bottles and things. And this is Goa, and these are posts made by some Goan people and some people from Delhi and all. I mean, else do you do? Come in Goa and do if you're not sitting in a cafe or a bar, or you're not having a beer. I mean, what is the unusual about that? Of course, there are other things that you can do. You can go to a temple, you can go to a church, But saying that an 18-year-old is holding a liquor bottle with her and she's in a bar, I don't see that how that's an anomaly to the system in India. It's nothing wrong running a restaurant which has a bar, but she's not the owner of it, and that's the fact.
They're trying to bring in a moral image, so to speak, especially because the BJP believes in certain values that it holds very close to its heart. So,
I
in that
don't think
sense,
owning a
perhaps.
restaurant, Sharan, I don't think owning a restaurant
But
that
the
has a
problem is
bar.
not with the restaurant. They're highlighting it specifically on the bar and the liquor angle.
What is wrong in that? I'm just trying to understand what is wrong in having a bar which is legal, for example. Because are you telling me
I
that
was laughing.
nobody in the Congress enters a bar? I'll be very surprised. In fact, the recent images of Rahul Gandhi at a party with a lady that was supposed to claim to be a Chinese lady, which I really don't know and I really don't care. Where was that, if not in a lounge bar? And was he not having something on the table where you can assume was alcohol? So I don't know honestly where the problem is, because are you telling me today that a, a BJP person who might be in business has a restaurant and that restaurant serves liquor is morally incorrect? Well, then we should ask Rahul Gandhi, what he does along with the Gandhis in Goa at the Leela Hotel, mostly during the Christmas time, because Christmas, New Year's they spend at the Leela Hotel in Goa, right? Can we assume for a moment that maybe the Leela Hotel belongs to Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi? I mean, anybody can make any assumptions that they want, no? What defines ownership? Ownership is defined by a document given by the government that allows you rights to a particular property, to a particular car, to a particular bike, to a particular company for that matter, right? There is nothing of that sort. So I think, what they have done by targeting Zoish, more importantly, I'll tell you where I came into this is when I realized that the Goan resident family, what did they have to do with the entire thing? Yeah. They've got absolutely nothing to do with it. Yet they got dragged into it, no? So they're getting victimized unnecessarily. What was the need for it? And I think Smriti Irani is taking the right route of taking them to court. And hopefully they will learn their lesson by realizing not to lie about young people who've got nothing to do with politics. With this family, the Goan family has got nothing to do with politics. I think they need to be taught a lesson. That's my opinion.
When the entire Rahul Gandhi episode in Nepal happened, I was actually hoping that there would be one Congress person who would pop out and suddenly say, no, it was Minute Maid in his glass, it was not vodka or whiskey. Because anything can happen with the Congress at this moment. And the sort of statements that we actually see coming from them, it's not even reasonable in that sense.
To actually sum up on the Smriti Irani issue, besides all the
Yeah.
laughter that you and I have had, the fact of the matter is there is absolutely no document, that government documents, that is the only proof to ownership of any property in any part of the world that exists that says Zoish Irani is the owner of the restaurant in question. Number one. Number two, even the show cause notice that went from the Goa Excise Department goes to the original owner of the restaurant, and by virtue of the original owner not being around, it goes to the son who looks after the restaurant. Okay, there is a process that is required for this entire shift of ownership from father to son, and I think it was probably in the delay of that, including the tragedy that the young man faced in his family, is what led to the delay of the renewal of the license. It is renewal of the license, yes, is a concern, it's an issue, but it needs to be dealt with by the laws that are there within the state of Goa. And I think for the delay, he would be fined. To drag Mrs. Irani's daughter into a political vindictive attempt is absolutely shameful, primarily because, well, she is an intern chef. Chef, there is no doubt about it. She was there for a certain period of time and no longer there anymore. She's moved on to UK where she's doing her studies, and that's where it is, and that's where it ends. But now that they have attacked Mrs. Irani's daughter, and through which they wanted to attack Mrs. Irani, I think Mrs. Irani is taking the right course, which is to take them to court. And it is only in
Right.
court that everything will come to light. And they will, I believe, will at some point of time have to apologize for what they have done. You see, Sharan, I think it's something that is very sad, and I feel sad from a point of view that you cannot at any point of time bring family that has got no connection into politics into the tutu meme that happens in politics on a day-to-day basis. Especially, you cannot bring family who are young children who or third parties who have got nothing to do with your political upmanship. Okay, what you then do is scale up the dirt and the mud in the aspect of politics. Now, Congress, of course, is bereft of ideas on how to go after the BJP. They are, of course, upset of the fact that Mrs. Irani is gone and shaking the very strongholds of the areas that they have controlled. She has made Rahul Gandhi absolutely irrelevant, and she continuously makes Rahul Gandhi absolutely irrelevant. I mean, if Rahul Gandhi really was a leader of merit, then he would have fought Smriti Irani in Amethi. But he ran away from there, right? He went to Wayanad. So what does that show? There is no leadership in a guy in like Rahul Gandhi. I mean, a leader is somebody who would fight and, irrespective of the loss, will continue to work for the people. This gentleman put his tail between his legs and ran away. So, in all this, I think there's been a little damage to the ego of the Congress, and they are whining like little children, and therefore to attack Smriti Irani, this entire drama is being played. I'm sure Smriti Irani, with the help of the law, will come out of it, and so will her daughter's. The allegations made against her daughter will be proved to be untrue.
Yeah. In fact, many people felt that this is a desperate act of the Congress because it was right after Sonia Gandhi was taken by the ED for questioning. So it was
Mhm.
almost like a personal revenge or a retribution. But I agree with you, and I think most people, regardless of what political belief system they come from, there is a certain understanding that families have to be kept out of politics. You want to have a fight, you personally fight with somebody if you have an issue in that manner.
Correct.
So that evening, I actually thought, okay, fine. If there is somebody in the Congress party who thought that they could score political brownie points by raking this issue up, they could not be any more wrong, because at the end of the day, people will sympathize and support somebody who's so young, somebody who's so enterprising, and she is
No,
being
actually,
targeted
Sharan,
unfortunately because
I
of.
will tell you on a more larger note some of the despicable comments that went against this young girl. Okay. On social media, like I said, carrying a booze bottle, and as though now carrying a booze bottle was against the morality of Goan culture. I think it's very much there. People, it's not unusual. So it became very vile in its approach. A lot of these people on social media, the trolls, were attacking her and Mrs. Irani, and I wondered. I said, this is getting to an extent where people have lost their God-given sensibilities to go so low. It's sad. And that's what I felt. Many people drew comparison with Aryan Khan, and Riya Chakrabarti, but they've not realized what was Riya Chakrabarti is being charge sheeted for carrying for being supplying drugs, right? Aryan Khan was in a
Yeah.
party that was supposedly having drugs. They let him go because there was no incriminating evidence to show that he was involved in the supply of drugs. Right? That's the reason he went, and that's fantastic, no? Because he went through the ordeal and came out clean. Of course, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of bits on the social media, but you can't look at every case in the same light. In this case, also, where is the direct connection of the girl with? the restaurant, other than the fact that she was an intern chef. The
Yeah,
license of a place is not her concern, no. It's the owner's concern. Her job is to, as an intern chef, is to cook over there,
yeah.
right? So I
You know,
think we
I
we
want to
get
ask you something.
go ahead.
I want to ask you something a little personal. You may choose completely not to answer it. I've seen a few people and many people in politics, regardless of their political affiliations, their families and children being affected because the fathers and the mothers and the families and is into that particular field. So, you know, as a father, sometimes do you worry, or what would your general advice to your children be? Because you know, eventually they are going to be targeted if the politics of the day eventually stoops down. You know, so that would be concern for any loving and caring father.
Well, I can tell you, okay, to well, it's happened to me numerously as a journalist, where my kids or my family have been targeted, where messages were sent to my wife, messages were sent to my daughter, calls were made, and then we tracked them down and all that. As a politician, during the course of the elections, there were these images put about me saying very strange things, and my daughters would get a copy of it because in their WhatsApp group somebody would have found it and saying, "See what they're saying about your dad" and all that. And so my kids laugh it out because they know their dad more than anybody else, and we are. We were kind of very clear on what we're doing. We have a lot of conversation. But this I would say that if my family is ever targeted in any manner, God help that person who's targeting my family. I could only say that because we've had it a couple of times. The persons who were responsible for it realized that we are not people to mess around with. Because when it comes to my daughters and my parents and my wife, uh, there is a different side that you will touch and you might not like. Then Savio will not be as calm as he is right now because then I will use every force in my power to destroy you. It's as simple as that. So
That's
my
extremely hard
family
for me to understand.
my family is well versed with what I'm capable of doing. I think my I let's look at this case. I remember the a gentleman from the Northwest Frontier who threatened us, sometime a couple of months ago. Sorry, and we tracked him down in wherever he was in the Northwest Frontier. Our people tracked him down, and now we've got eyes on him. Instead of him having eyes on me and my family, we've got eyes on him. And if there's any wrong move, being in Northwest Frontier himself, he would not exist. Right?
Right.
So there are people in the
No, that
political
explains
circles.
the entire legal notice that Smriti Irani sent because eventually you will have to respond to them in some manner or
You
the
have
other.
to respond.
And
You
the
can't
response
keep
will be
quiet.
tough.
You
Yeah,
can't keep quiet, Sharan. I can assure you of one thing. Politicians must, if family is dragged in for no point of all, and if the family is genuinely got nothing to do, an innocent set of people, then it's up to the politician to go after them. It's as simple as that. There is a law. You don't have any right to defame my family. You want to defame me, you want to come after me, you can say anything. I couldn't care a damn about what you say. But if you target my family, and when I mean my family, I'm talking about every politician. I think it needs to be given the right response legally, and if they go beyond legal means to harass my family, then the non-legal means are also applicable, in the manner in which you harass.
yeah, absolutely. So I will see how this goes. I mean, usually even defamation cases and all legal proceedings take months together, and hopefully this will be resolved even more sooner,
They've
and there
come
will be a
after
response from
wrongdoing.
the society. Yeah.
Smriti Irani is not
No,
somebody you want to fight with, and especially with her family, she won't let them go.
I don't understand sometimes why there is such unnecessary ego involved in politics because at the end of the day, would you want to spend so much legal fees, wait for 10 years, and then finally the judge will say sorry and get over this? or just show some regret, show some remorse, say that okay, we are sorry
No,
that
they
this
won't.
went out of hand.
They won't, because they want the turmoil to continue. As long as the case is on, the turmoil is on. So I don't think Pavan Kera and all will ever say sorry, because firstly, Pavan Kera is a shameless person. Okay, by character itself. Jairam Ramesh has absolutely surprised me, but he's been acting pretty insane over the last couple of months, making insane statements. So I don't expect a sorry from them. Okay. You look at what Congress has been doing in the recent week itself. Forget Smriti Irani's case in Parliament. You know, they went and doctored a video of the President Kovind and the Prime Minister of India. You know, the outgoing president,
Yeah.
and he's greeted him, but they've chopped the video up in Congress and they started circulating it. Then they've created this issue yesterday of Mallikar Arjun Karge, you know, sitting in a particular position on the front row when Arun Jaitley in 2012 was sitting in the same position. You know, he's grumpy. Now they're saying, look at his face. He's grumpy, but that's Mallikar Arjun Karge's face. It always looks grumpy, you know. He looks like a serious type of a guy. So he's not a guy who smiles, you know. So I can see that, but that's his regular face. You know, he wakes up in the morning and looks into the mirror and says, I'm Malika Arjun Karge, this is me, you know. So he's not got a smiling face, right?
Yeah.
And then they made and over the week they've been making series of issues then about the words that are used in Parliament. And then when you look at the words they have blocked in Parliament, it is a routine process, you know. I think Congress is bereft of ideas. And I also feel deliberately somebody in the Congress is advising the senior leaders, why don't you do it this way? And because they are bereft of ideas, they are saying, okay, let's do it. And finally getting eggs on their face. It's sad. It's sad because there are intelligent people in the Congress, but they're acting like completely dumb people.
No, in that sense, that's the general joke going around, right? That Rahul Gandhi is the biggest asset to the Congress, for the BJP in that sense. As long as he's there, BJP will continue to remain relevant, at least at the national level.
Well, I, to a certain extent, believe that Rahul Gandhi is a very, very brilliant performer as far as comedy is concerned. He is the best comedian that this country has ever seen. And he is an absolute entertainment in Parliament and outside of Parliament. I think it's a skill set we should not disturb. We should allow him to perform at his best abilities. Expecting him to think differently or logically is is asking for too much.